I have to be honest with you. Not every story on this channel is about a hero I idolized. Sometimes, it's about the villain of my childhood. And if there was one man, one single player, I truly learned to hate as a kid, it was Bastian Schweinsteiger. Now, before you rush to that dislike button, just hear me out for a second. I was a kid, and the reason for all this intense feeling was simple. This man, this midfield general, always scored against my beloved Portuguese national team. It was infuriating, especially when you consider he barely broke the 100-goal mark in his entire storied career. But of course, now that I'm all grown up, that hate is faded. Honestly, when I hear his name now, I just feel this strange, profound sense of respect. Because I know from my own painful experience just how devastating, how utterly dominant he could be. So with my childhood trauma laid bare, let's get into the story of a true footballing legend to make sure you never miss how a villain can become a hero in the world of football. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. You know I've developed a bit of a conspiracy theory about him. If you look up his birthday, you'll see he was born in the summer of the Euro 1984 tournament. A tournament where fatefully Portugal knocked Germany out in the group stage. This can only lead to one plausible, undeniable conclusion. This man was genetically engineered, born and bred, with the sole purpose of seeking revenge against my country. I will not accept any other explanation. Okay, for real now. Now I'm done with the jokes. Bastian was born in Kolbermoor, and as a little boy he was a whirlwind of athletic talent involved in all kinds of sports. Oddly enough, his first great passion wasn't football, but skiing. He was genuinely invested, a real talent on the slopes. The beautiful game wouldn't even cross his path for a while. Not until his younger brother Tobias took up the sport and started excelling right from the get-go. Seeing the fun, the joy, and the attention his brother was getting, Bastian felt that familiar pull, that craving to be part of it. And soon enough, the skis were put away, and he joined a football team. For the next 8 years, there wasn't one single dramatic event, just the steady, quiet hum of improvement. The boy was good, and he got better every single day. Then, at 14 years old, a scout's eye fell upon the Schweinsteiger brothers. Not just Bastian, but Tobias too. And just like that, both of them were on their way to the legendary Bayern Munich. While Bastian would go on to cause a seismic impact on the world of football, his brother Tobias carved out his own respectable path. He got some playing time for the Bayern reserve squad in 2012. And here's a fun fact for you: Tobias actually ended his professional career with more goals scored than his famous brother. You might have to dock him a few points, though, considering most of them came in the 3rd division. But a fact is a fact. But let's get back on topic. Once he was established at Bayern, the young Bastian started getting talked about for 2 very different reasons. First, for his immense, undeniable talent on display for the reserve squad. And second, for constantly getting into trouble off the pitch. You know, the regular stuff for a young star feeling his own power. It wasn't quite on the level of, say, Mario Balotelli's antics, but there was some excessive speeding, some truly outrageous haircuts, and the classic late-night partying before games. I did find one story, though, that happened a little further into his time at Bayern. He apparently smuggled his girlfriend onto the team's grounds so they could use the jacuzzi. When they were eventually caught, he claimed she was his cousin, which honestly, considering what they were probably doing in there, might just make the whole situation worse. But despite all this youthful craziness, at just 18 years of age, he got his debut for the senior team. And it was a debut that was notorious for several reasons. It was a Champions League match under the bright European lights. He played, of all places, as a left back. And even with only a few minutes on the pitch, he managed to assist a goal. To top it all off, he shared his debut with another Bayern youngster, whose name you might just recognize, the one and only Philipp Lahm. Despite getting very little playing time for the rest of that season, He ended it with both a Bundesliga title and a German Cup added to his resume. The following season was the complete opposite. Bastian got far more minutes, becoming a regular fixture, but the team wouldn't win a single title. Still, there was a silver lining that summer. He was called up to the Euro 2004 squad, his first ever international tournament with Germany. Sadly for him and his country, they wouldn't win a single game and crashed out in the group stage. The next 2 seasons were a strange back and forth for Schweinsteiger. He even found himself temporarily sent back to the reserves, a humbling moment that could have broken a lesser player. But he fought his way back, finally starting to assert himself to prove that he was an indispensable force for Bayern Munich. And on the bright side, he did manage to earn himself another 2 league titles. Then came the 2006 World Cup hosted in Germany, and a moment forever seared into my memory, the 3rd-place match against Portugal. It was there he scored 2 incredible, blistering long-range efforts, and then took the very free kick that led to an own goal, making it 3-1 to Germany. They took the bronze medal, and my young heart was broken once again. For a while after that, his club career wasn't filled with European drama, but with the steady, relentless beat of Bayern's domination over German domestic competitions. The international stage, however, was where the real emotional roller coaster continued. At Euro 2008, besides, and of course you knew this was coming, knocking out Portugal with another goal, it was Schweinsteiger again who scored to take Germany to the final. But there, a different story was being written. The Spanish national team was a force of nature, an absolutely incredible team. And Germany could go no further as Fernando Torres put Spain in front early on. To break Schweinsteiger's heart just a little bit more, a year later, he would witness firsthand as Bayern fought their way to the Champions League final, only to lose to José Mourinho's Inter Milan. As much as that Inter team didn't necessarily play the most aesthetically pleasing football, their spirit, their sacrifice, and their sheer cohesion proved strong enough to suffocate and defeat even the best teams the world had to offer. And in that year's World Cup, Germany would, for the 2nd consecutive time, finish in 3rd place, failing in the semi-finals to, you guessed it, Spain once again. Regardless, the sheer consistency shown by Schweinsteiger was impossible to ignore. By the end of the year, his relentless performances earned him his first Ballon d'Or nomination. Following one relatively unremarkable season, of course, there was nothing else waiting for him but more heartbreak. First, a moment of sweet revenge as he helped Bayern knock out Mourinho's Real Madrid in a tense penalty shootout. It was Schweinsteiger himself who stepped up and converted the decisive penalty, the weight of the club on his shoulders sending them to the final. But the end of this fairy tale wouldn't be so wonderful, at least not for Bayern. In their own stadium, Chelsea against all odds would beat them in the final of the Champions League. To come so close to be the hero in the semi-final and then feel the weight of the loss in the final, it's unimaginable. I have to ask you all, what's the most heartbreaking loss you've ever witnessed as a fan? How do you even begin to recover from something like that? Let me know your stories in the comments below. At this point, if anyone needed a change of luck, it was clearly Bastian. His career seemed to be teetering on the edge of what could have been. He was now 28 years old. A few more years of soul-crushing defeats, and he could have reached the point of no return. But then things started looking much, much brighter. Let's talk about the 2012-2013 season. Bayern as a whole was simply incredible. They were a machine. They ended the season with 23 consecutive wins, which, as you might imagine, meant they won nearly everything. Firstly, let's talk about their greatest achievement, the Champions League. They didn't just win it. They decimated the competition, losing only once throughout the entire tournament to Bate Borisov of all teams and racking up immense wins, most iconically, a 7-0 aggregate victory over Barcelona. To further expand on this monumental achievement, they would also win the league, the cup, the European Super Cup, and the Club World Cup, becoming only the 7th club ever to win the treble and even completing the quintuple. If only they hadn't lost the German Super Cup to Dortmund, maybe they could have taken it one step further. It's stories of resilience like this, of rising from the ashes, that make football the greatest drama on earth. If you love these journeys of heartbreak and redemption, make sure you subscribe to Legends of Football League, because we have so many more incredible tales of players who refuse to be broken. And if there is any doubt whatsoever about how essential Schweinsteiger was to this team, let me remind you that he would win that year's German Player of the Year award and be the 4th highest placed Bayern player in that year's Ballon d'Or, which is even more impressive when you consider that more offensive players tend to get the upper hand in that award. If that season was reason enough for Schweinsteiger to feel immensely proud of his career, then 2014 would be the cherry on top of the cake. As summer came around, he would take part in what would be his last ever World Cup. And if so far, his World Cups were always the close but no cigar type, this time he would go all the way. And he would do it in style. The final against Argentina was a brutal, physical war, and the lasting image of that match is Schweinsteiger bloodied, battered, but unbowed, fighting through everything to drag his nation to glory. That image of him bloodied but unbowed is one for the ages. If his fight inspired you, share this story with a fellow fan who understands what it means to give everything for the shirt. And while you're at it, who's another warrior of the game whose story we need to tell? Drop your suggestions below. After winning yet another Bundesliga title, it was finally time for a move. He joined Louis van Gaal's Manchester United for €9 million. If you recall that team, you know it did not go too well. In the final 18 matches of the season, they would only manage to win a single match by more than 1 goal. Over the summer, he took part in the Euro 2016, his last tournament for Germany, replacing Philipp Lahm as the captain of the squad. He would only average around 45 minutes per match, though, as he watched Germany miss out on the final, losing to France in the semi-final. And if things weren't going too well for Schweinsteiger at Old Trafford, they would only get worse once José Mourinho arrived as the new coach. Mourinho decided that Bastian did not fit into his plans, and I'm not excusing this dreadful decision, he demoted him, sending him to train with the under-23 squad. A World Cup winner, a Champions League winner, a living legend cast aside. Though he would, through sheer professionalism, manage to break into the first team once again by March, he reached a mutual agreement with the club and finally left to join the Chicago Fire in the MLS. His first season there would be his most successful, reaching the playoffs, only to get knocked out in the first round. From then on, he would have 2 largely unsuccessful seasons at the club at one point, even suffering a second-to-last place finish before finally hanging up his boots and ending a career that most players would absolutely envy. It's very hard to point out any genuine flaws in Schweinsteiger's game. He could shoot from range, take wicked set pieces, dribble like very few in his position, provide pinpoint crosses, make crucial tackles, and even play in several positions, either out on the wing or as a dominant box-to-box midfielder. The guy could simply do it all. In Germany, they called him the Fußballgott, the football god, and I find it very, very fitting. Players like him always left me speechless. Versatility might just be the most underrated aspect a player can bring to a team. It can be the one key change needed for a team to switch up their game and become successful. Looking back on it now, I'm happy his luck turned around. I'm happy he managed to get the trophies his talent and his incredible career deserved. It would have been a crying shame to see a player like him go out before getting his time in the spotlight. Yeah, in the end, it was a great, great career. But now let's get into the ranking system. First of all, his defensive traits. Impressive considering how great he could be in attack. I give him a 7 out of 10. Then playmaking, an 8 out of 10. He could certainly create, but playing further back, he didn't always get to show off this ability as much as perhaps he should have. Attacking traits follow the same logic as his playmaking, though I think this part of his game had the edge, so it's a 9 out of 10. Speed and physicality was a good mix, something frequently found in well-rounded players. Still, he wasn't necessarily exceptional at either, so it's an 8 out of 10. His mentality was clearly one of his greatest qualities, from his work rate to his leadership. But I feel like he just missed some of that vocal, commanding edge that could have made him a truly exceptional leader on the pitch, so he ends up with an 8. Longevity and adaptability is tough. Though I don't blame him too much for his unimpressive time in England. He did seem to be struggling to adapt to a new league, and since his longevity wasn't mind-blowing, he gets an 8 out of 10. When it comes to flair, I've always personally found him to be very entertaining to watch, definitely edging out most players who had similar roles. For me, it's an 8 out of 10. Then the trophy cabinet. A World Cup and a Champions League is a rare sight, but there isn't much on the individual side of things, and not a huge variety either. It's a 9 out of 10. Finally, the icon factor. His retirement is still very recent in our minds, so it's a bit tougher to judge. But I honestly feel like, given his more understated role in the first half of his career, he will have a tough time maintaining a legendary status outside of Germany. I think it warrants him a 7 out of 10. This all adds up to a 72 out of 90, putting him level with players like Xabi Alonso and Clarence Seedorf. And that's where this incredible football story concludes. What a journey, right? From childhood villain to a player I deeply respect. I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment from his career stood out to you the most? Did his struggle and ultimate redemption resonate with you? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you. I'll see you in the next one.